Hi heroes and villains, welcome to AArdvark Poker. My name is Steven, I'm your host, and today is the first episode in a series about the mental game in poker. Now if you take poker serious and you like it just as me and AArdvark Poker, you probably experience poker as intriguing, exciting, frustrating, sometimes boring. You may have found yourself screaming at your laptop or wanting to throw it out of the window. Well, poker is not a short travel, but a long road. Today, in the first episode, we're going to talk about chaos and random events. It will perhaps be a bit philosophical, biological, but I think it's necessary to be able to deal with this game. Now, am I a mental giant? No. I'd like to quote the Irish playwright George Bernard Shaw. I'm not a teacher, only a fellow traveler of whom you asked the way. I pointed ahead of myself as well as you. Now let's get down to biology. Human beings are animals. I'm serious. Just look around you. The poker table, the supermarket, on the street. We are animals. Some of us may look a bit more beastly than others, but when it comes down to biology, we're nothing more but apes. Now then again, we're also pattern-seeking animals. The sun comes up, the sun goes down, tides come in, the tides go out, winter's coming, spring, summer, fall. We recognize these patterns, and this was very important for the development of our species, for agriculture, and seeking patterns in data has also been the basis for science. Right? We can see patterns in DNA sequences. Know when pattern in a DNA sequence is linked to a certain disease, and it also forms the basis for several treatments of diseases. And the whole pattern seeking and science has formed the basis for theories such as the theory of evolution, the solar system, the atomic model. But it happens to be that we're so good in seeing patterns that we also see patterns in noise. You may have seen this picture before. This is a picture taken by the spacecraft Viking 1 in 1976. On the surface of Mars, a certain rock formation looks like a human face, and it gave rise to speculations of alien civilizations. Now, as a side note, why would aliens look exactly like us and have faces like us? Seems unlikely. 25 years later, another spacecraft took pictures with a much higher resolution, and now it turns out this rock formation doesn't really look like a face. But if you close your eyes a bit, it may still look like a face, and what you do is you reduce the data quality, but if you have enough information, you can see that there is no face. Now, of course, we see faces in a lot more instances. We see faces everywhere. This is an example. Smoke that came out of the Twin Towers after the 9/11 attacks seems to be a face, and that gave rise to some conspiracy theories that Satan may be behind it. But was it really Satan? Or was it the elves of the Lord of the Rings? Nobody ever came up with that conspiracy theory. But we're primed to see faces. Right? We see faces everywhere, and not only faces, we see all kinds of connections between random events. And seeing these patterns in random events, that gave rise to belief in UFOs, homeopathy, all kinds of conspiracy theories, and other nonsense or pseudoscience. But we need to realize that seeing patterns is wired in our brains. And not only in our brains, also in the brains of animals. Because what I said in the beginning, we're nothing more than animals. You may have heard of this type of scientific experiment performed by the American psychologist B.F. Skinner. He devised a box now known as the Skinner box, in which you place a laboratory animal. It can be a rodent. It was originally done with pigeons. These pigeons received certain stimuli, and they can also press a button. And then through a hole in the wall of this box, at random intervals, they would receive some food. But the animal would link receiving the food to the action that it performed, and would repeat this action. This action would be reinforced again by receiving the food at a random interval. Now, what do mice and pigeons have to do with us playing poker? I briefly want to talk about the gambler's fallacy, which is a misinterpretation of what randomness really is. Some people believe that if it was red 6 times in a row at roulette, that the chance will be higher. Next time it will be black. And they will also think that if you play the lottery, chances, if you fill out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, these chances will be so low that happens, much lower than, say, if you pick 4, 7, 18, 24, 36, 41. But of course, if you do the math, you know it is just as likely. If you pick 6 out of 49 lottery balls, the chances are about 1 in 14 million that you pick the right numbers. So do you need luck to get good starting hands? If you look at the session that I played recently, you could see that in this particular session, I didn't get any premium pocket pairs, or much less than should be average. No suited aces, so you could consider this unlucky. But of course, you can also see this was a session of only 66 hands. So it is maybe 2 to 3 hours in a live session or a short online session. However, if we increase the amount of hands to about 2,000, we now see that we get most hands at expected frequency. And if we increase the amount of hands even further to 60,000, this may be the amount you play in a month, 2 months, 3 months online, you will see that every starting hand you will receive the expected frequency. Now, of course, if you get dealt pocket aces, it also matters what your opponent has, right? You can stack somebody off easily if you have pocket aces and they have pocket kings, or you can raise pocket aces and the blinds have nothing and they fold, and you earn almost nothing. The first case, you may call yourself lucky. Second case, you may call yourself unlucky. But also, this will average out in the long run. In the long run, we receive same hands, play against the same hands. So overall, it's how we play our hands. Poker is not about the starting hands that we receive. It's about how you play them. Previous hands that you got do not influence the future cards, but we need to realize that they may influence how you play your cards. Of course, we should prevent that past hands negatively influence the way we play future hands. Of course, I realize that's easier said than done, but that is what the mental game of poker is about. And what are the things that can throw us off our A game? It's pretty much bad beats, coolers. For those who don't know what a bad beat and a cooler is, bad beat, we get it in as a favorite, but we still lose the hand. And the cooler is, we have a very good hand, for example, pocket kings, but villain has an even better hand, so pocket aces. It's a cooler. The destined to lose the hand, although he had a very good hand. And what are the chances? Right? Calculated chances that get a cooler. Coolers, unfortunately, are a part of the game, and one time will be on the good end of the cooler, the other time will be on the bad end, and on average, this again will even out. Bad beats, however, are what makes poker profitable. If you get it in as a favorite, sometimes you will lose, but on average, you will win. In some of the next episodes, we may take a look at what we can do to prevent tilt, but at this point, I want to emphasize we should be concentrated enough to focus on not on our own emotions only, but also on the emotions of other players. And for this, I want to bring in an example hand. So this hand that was played at PokerStars NL 10, our villain sits in the low jack position. You can see that he's probably very fishy, doesn't have a full stack, he limps first in. And I also must note that although I only played a few hands with this particular villain, a few hands ago I just stacked him because he couldn't lay down top pair, top kicker versus my set. So we are in the small blind with pocket sevens. I think we can raise, I think we can also call. I decided to call here. The big blind checks. We go to the flop. Flop comes out very good for us. We flop bottom set. I decided to lead out because I didn't want the flop to check through. Lead out for 1.4 big blinds. Big blind folds. And our villain calls the bet. The turn, the 3 of spades. Doesn't really change the board very much. So I decided to bet big. Almost pot size bet, and our villain calls again. So at this point, I think he must have at least a top pair or second pair. The river brings the 4 hearts, so there's no flush that completes. He of course 2-5 or 5-6 cut there, but I don't think that's part of villain's range anymore. I wondered what bet size would villain call. She would go for a half pot, she would go for full pot. But thinking about history with this, the short history with this particular villain, and that villain may still be on tilt from one of the last hands against me, I decided to ship it. Put villain all in for his remaining 70 big blinds. I was happy to see that villain called with ace-6 off. Now, of course, you can say this was very lucky, and of course it was, but we also exploited villain and went for maximum value. That, of course, is what we need to do. We need to suppress our own tilt, try to exploit the emotions of the other players. Now, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If so, please click the like and subscribe button. And in the future, I'll try to do a few more episodes on different aspects of mental game.